Welcome back to The Whole Story. I'm Marcus.
And I'm Daniel. And Marcus, last time in episode 6, we finished Genesis chapter 11, and it felt like we hit a brick wall.
It really did. The first 11 chapters of the Bible are the great diagnosis of the human condition. We saw a perfect creation followed by the fall. We saw the first murder, a world-drowning flood, and then humanity's united, arrogant project at the Tower of Babel.
Right. And every attempt humanity made to save itself, to make a great name for itself, just made things worse. It ended with humanity scattered, the journey stalled, and as we saw in the very last verses, a barren womb. It felt like a total dead end.
That's the perfect way to put it, a dead end. Genesis 1 through 11 shows us in no uncertain terms that humanity cannot save itself. But today, in Genesis chapter 12, everything changes. The diagnosis is over. Now, God's rescue plan begins, and it begins with a single sentence. It begins when God breaks the silence. The chapter opens, "Now the Lord said to Abram, 'Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you.'"
Wow. Okay, just stop there. The weight of that command is huge. He doesn't say, "Hey, Abram, could you consider moving?" It's a command to leave everything.
Everything. Notice the 3 layers of security he's told to abandon: your country, your national identity; your kindred, your wider clan, your relatives; and finally, your father's house, the core of your identity, inheritance, and protection in the ancient world. God is stripping away every layer of his earthly identity.
And for what? For a mystery destination, to the land that I will show you. He doesn't even get a name or a map. That's a radical level of trust.
That's a helpful breakdown. In our modern individualistic world, we might miss the sheer terror of that command. To be cut off from your clan and family in the ancient Near East was basically a death sentence. You had no protection, no social standing, no economic safety net.
It's pure radical faith. And think about who God calls. After the mess of Babel, he doesn't call a king or an army or a religious committee. He calls one man from a pagan family in Ur of the Chaldees. The divine rescue of the world begins with a whisper to one person. But what follows the command, Daniel, is the heart of this chapter, and arguably the whole Bible. It's the promise.
Okay, lay it out for us. It's a magnificent sevenfold promise. First, God says, "And I will make of you a great nation."
Hold on. Right there, the alarm bells are ringing. We just learned at the end of chapter 11 that Abram's wife Sarai is barren. She had no children.
Exactly. The very first clause of the promise is, from a human standpoint, impossible. The promise begins in barrenness. It has to be a miracle from the outset.
Wow. Okay, what's next?
Second, "I will bless you," a direct personal blessing. Third, "and make your name great." Now, does that phrase sound familiar?
Yeah, that's exactly what the people at Babel said they wanted to do. Let us make a name for ourselves.
Precisely. They tried to seize greatness for themselves, and they were scattered and shamed. Here, God says to Abram, "You don't have to seize it. I will give it to you." It's a complete reversal. Fourth, and this is a crucial turn, "so that you will be a blessing." He's not just blessed for his own sake, he's blessed to become a conduit of blessing to others.
Okay, blessed to be a blessing.
I like that. Fifth and sixth, "I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse." This is God's personal guarantee of protection. To be Abram's friend is to be God's friend. To be his enemy is to be God's enemy. And then comes the 7th promise, the climax of it all.
The one that ties it all together.
The one that explains the whole point. "And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed."
All the families of the earth. So this isn't just about creating one special nation for its own sake. This is about everyone.
This is God's answer to Babel. At Babel, the families of the earth were divided, confused, and scattered. Now, God's plan is to bless all those scattered families through this one man and his descendants. The division of Babel will be healed through the election of Abram.
So instead of humanity building a tower up to reach God,
God is coming down to rescue humanity through one chosen lineage.
You've got it. It's divine initiative. It's grace. The solution to humanity's division isn't another human project, it's a divine promise. And that brings us to Abram's response. How does a 75-year-old man respond to a call to leave everything and a promise that seems utterly impossible?
You'd expect some negotiation, right? Or at least a few questions. Where are we going exactly? How is the barrenness thing going to work out?
But we get none of that. The text is beautifully simple. Verse 4, So Abram went as the Lord had told him.
That's it?
That's it. Simple, immediate, stunning obedience. Faith expressed through action. He takes Sarai, his nephew Lot, all their possessions, and he starts walking. At 75 years old. This isn't a young man's adventure. It's the radical act of faith of a man in the final act of his life. So where do they end up? He arrives in the land of Canaan at a place called Shechem. And there, God appears to him again and gets more specific. He says, "To your offspring I will give this land." So now the promise has a specific geography attached to it.
And the text says Abram builds an altar. What's the significance of that?
It's an act of worship. It's staking a claim of faith. In a land full of other people and other gods, Abram builds an altar to Yahweh. It's a public declaration of his allegiance. He then moves on and builds another altar, and the text says he called upon the name of the Lord. That specific phrase echoes back to Genesis 4 with the line of Seth. Abram is picking up the thread of that faithful remnant who call on God's name.
Okay, so far so good. He's heard the call, he's obeyed, he's in the land, he's worshiping. This is the story of a hero of faith.
You would think so, but just when we're ready to put Abram on a pedestal, the story takes a very dark, very human turn, because almost immediately a severe famine strikes the land.
The first test. God promises him this land, and now it's starving him out.
Exactly. And what does Abram do? Does he build another altar and call on the name of the Lord? No. He takes matters into his own hands. He goes down to Egypt, and on the way, he cooks up a scheme. He tells Sarai, who is very beautiful, "Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake."
Whoa, wait a minute. He's afraid the Egyptians will kill him to get his beautiful wife, so he decides to pass her off as a sister. He's essentially using her as a human shield.
It's worse than that. As an unmarried woman, she's now available. And sure enough, Pharaoh's officials see her, praise her to Pharaoh, and she is taken into Pharaoh's house, into his harem. The mother of the promised nation is now in the hands of a pagan king because of her husband's fearful deception.
This is a disaster, and Abram just lets this happen?
He not only lets it happen, he profits from it. The text says Pharaoh treated Abram well because of her sake, and he acquired sheep, oxen, donkeys, and servants. The man of faith has become a coward and a deceiver, endangering the entire promise of God for his own safety and wealth.
So how does this not end right here? How is the promise not completely destroyed?
Because the promise doesn't depend on Abram. It depends on God. Look what happens next. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife.
God intervenes. He bails Abram out of the mess Abram himself created. Those plagues sound a bit familiar too, a bit like a preview of the book of Exodus.
It's a definite foreshadowing. Pharaoh figures out what's going on and confronts Abram, and we have this incredible, humiliating scene where a pagan king rebukes the chosen man of God. Pharaoh says, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you say, 'She is my sister'? Now then, here is your wife, take her and go."
He gets sent away in total shame, but he still has all the wealth he got from the deal.
Yes. So what does this failure right at the beginning of the story teach us?
It shows that Abram is definitely not a flawless hero. He's deeply flawed. He's capable of great faith the one minute and spectacular failure the next.
And that is perhaps the most crucial lesson of the entire chapter. The covenant, the promise, rests on God's faithfulness, not Abram's perfection. If the plan depended on Abram being good enough or brave enough, it would have crashed and burned right here in Egypt.
Right, God protects the promise even from the promise keeper himself. That's grace.
That's exactly what it is, and that's our takeaway as we close. Genesis chapter 12 is the hinge of the entire Bible. Everything before it, creation, fall, flood, Babel, is the diagnosis of the problem. Everything after it is the story of God's solution unfolding through this promise.
And that solution isn't another flood or another scattering. It's a promise to bless the whole world through one man's family.
A promise that, as we see from the very beginning, doesn't depend on human perfection, but on divine faithfulness. After the long, dark night of Genesis 1 through 11, this chapter is the sunrise. Hope has arrived, but it's a hope carried in the hands of a flawed, fallible, and forgiven human being.
That's an incredible start to this new section of the story.
It truly is. The story of the Bible from here on out is the story of this promise working its way through history. Join us next time as we continue with Abram's journey in Genesis 13 and 14, where we'll see conflict with Lot, meet the mysterious Melchizedek, and watch God's covenant be confirmed.